Give me 1 second, everybody, for this to work. Oh my God, Zai, that was so fast. So the lit exam was all right. That's good. Give me 1 second, everybody, for this to work. There we go. Cool. All right, so everything's working on my end. For those who watch after the fact, this will be a video where I go through a handful of FRQ problems that I found in AP Classroom that focus on stuff from Unit 1 of the College Board CED and in my class. That'd be production possibilities curves, and then absolute comparative advantage in terms of trade. So for most of you guys, I would assume the comparative advantage thing is what you need the most help with. So I'm going to be devoting most of my time and energy explaining on that side of it. But there will be some production possibilities stuff in these questions that I will touch on and explain and cover and make sure that you guys remember all the small little bits on the production possibilities curve questions, so that those stuff doesn't throw you off. For the next couple of days, tomorrow will be over what's listed as Unit 2 in College Board CED, which for my class was Units 2 and 3. That'd be supply and demand, like your basic one. There really aren't going to be many questions there. And then GDP, unemployment, CPI, that kind of stuff. Now, I think most of you guys don't have I'll check real quick. I think most of you guys don't have an AP exam tomorrow, right? Because it's Spanish Lit, Chem, and then Physics 1, algebra based. So I would assume that most of you guys won't have had that much. Sydney, good to see you. Yeah, I know. I don't really want to stop doing the live streams, and there's not much of a better time in the day for me to do it than for 2, because that kind of can hit most people. It's just during AP exam week. Again, if you can't make it during the video, during the live stream, feel free to watch it after the fact. These things record. So if you're mentally exhausted because you just wrote a friggin' essay for lit, that's totally fine. That's not. I'm not going to judge any of y'all for having to take a break. Again, these will be posted, so you'll be able to access them the next day, realistically. Yeah, I'll get about 3 more minutes before I get started on it. I'm trying to think of anything announcement-wise. Nothing on graduation. Again, I'm going to get an update on Friday when it comes to graduation. Max Schmucker and Luke Davis dropped off teacher appreciation gift. So thanks to those guys. Shouts to them. And shouts to all of you guys doing the teacher appreciation stuff. Stuco, really do appreciate that. And then all of you that participated, it's really nice. We do really like that. I don't know if you guys, did you guys have that thing in English this year where you have to do that letter to a teacher thing? Was that still happening this year? Because that happens every year around this time, week of the AP exam weeks are typically when students are knocking that part out, where you wear your whole cap and gown and everything, and you do a letter to a teacher or something. Only asked because I got one and I was like, are these still happening? It was still happening? Okay, cool. That's cool. Yeah, if you're going to do that, shoot one to my email. I am planning on doing something similar because I'm not going to be at graduation this year, but I still want to congratulate you all, and I don't know when we could do an in-person thing, so I'll probably just make recording video for each student of individual congratulations and stuff and that kind of thing. I'll shoot those out to you guys next week, probably on Friday, probably after your AP exam. Of the whole spiel I would have done. Over things like Zoom, though. Okay, gotcha. I had the student just attach one via email, which was fine, by the way. I was totally cool with that because that person was able to rehearse and send the best version. So if you'd rather record it and then send it that way, I wouldn't have a problem with that. But cool, I like those. Those I know those are kind of a hassle for you guys to do, but as a teacher, we do really, really like those because it's nice to get positive feedback. We like hearing that we're doing a good job. It's a good ego boost. While we are waiting. Archer! Come here. So fast. God, that was so quick. Oh, and Yoda. Oh, great. Well, there's Yoda. You can see her pretty clearly. Again, Yoda is my girlfriend's dog. She is not as good of a boy as Archer. Don't lick the microphone. Archer! God, she's whacking the thing. Okay, I'll give you some Yoda cam now because she's here and she's slipping on my thing. Boggo. Yods. Well, you're so big. I say she's not as good as Archer because she eats garbage and stuff because she's a lab. Labs are notorious for digging through garbage and eating things that might kill them. So that she's not great at. I know you think chocolate is delicious, but it can literally kill you. Should not eat it. Okay. I finished Unit 1 in the macro packet and having so much fun with it. Is that the AC/DC review packet, Sydney? I would assume so, right? Yeah, that packet's good. Yeah, that that AC/DC packet, it's like $17, but it's pretty friggin' worth it. I mean, you get practice over everything. You get good review videos that are fairly short and understandable. Thank God for that thing. That thing's super helpful. I had one for Gov too, but I don't think you really needed as much help in Gov. Luke and Max were telling me that they looked at Google Trends during the or right for when the Gov exam was happening, and they saw Electoral College spiked Google searches during the Gov exam, which is pretty funny. I don't think anyone's gonna get in trouble for just Googling stuff like that. You're not supposed to be able to get points for something as easy as a definition. So if you're just how does the Electoral College work again? Let me look that real quick. That wouldn't surprise me. Let me create... Oh, it's 2:02. I'm not looking at the time because I was distracted by the docs. I'm going to create a table real quick because I'm going to need it for one of these questions. Oh, for a couple of these questions. Actually, I'm going to make this bigger. Yeah, Sid, good call on getting that review packet. That thing is so good. All right. So, yeah, today we are going over production possibilities curves and comparative absolute advantage in terms of trade. Now, reminder, and this is super important, one of the things that I am pretty confident will be on your AP exam this year is comparative advantage, absolute advantage, terms of trade. That sort of type of question is really good for them to ask in remote learning because it's the kind of thing that you can't simply Google, and it also doesn't require graphing. So it's a nice question to ask. If you know how to do it, these will be very, very, very easy questions, actually. It's super easy to do a comparative and absolute advantage problem if you know how to do it. If you don't, you have a very slim chance. So if you forgot how to do them, this will be a super helpful video because I'm going to sort of go through the process of how to solve these kinds of problems, explaining what each part is and what the definitions are. If you know what the definitions are, and if you write down sort of the shortcut formula kind of thing, the OGO, OGU thing, then you should be in pretty good shape for this. And I'll also touch on production possibilities curves because those can show up because they always can show up. All right, so I actually assigned these problems on AP Classroom. It's not so that you have to do them. It's just so that you can click on them later if you wanted to look at some FRQs over these topics. So you have the ability to look at them later and just see, oh, let me watch the video again to see if I did this right, because it's been a week since I watched that video. I probably forgot what the answers were, that kind of thing. So with everything, here we go. Let me move my head out of the way so you can see the full thing. So we've got country A and country B can produce the same two products, hammocks and looms. So country A, country B, hammocks and looms. So what I'm doing is this. Country A, country B, hammocks, looms. Austin, English was hard. I mean, you've gotten bad prompts apparently, because I was saying she liked the passage that she got. Now again, Austin, don't freak out, because you'll only be graded against people that had the same prompt as you. So if Zai keeps getting easier prompts than you, cool, she's getting it graded against a higher standard probably, because it's an easier prompt. So it sucks to deal with, but it's not going to be unfair from a grading standpoint. I want to make sure that you're aware of that, because I don't want you to get too discouraged. You just had bad luck. Country A can make 60 hammocks or 40 looms, and country B can make 40 hammocks or 20 looms. So this is what I've done. Once I start seeing, if I look in the question, I'm sort of scanning it, I'm comparative advantage, okay, making a table, just gonna do it. It's just easier to do it. So I got this set up. Okay, so what I am looking here, hey Brutus, what's up? What I'm looking at here, I can see that country A can make more of both of these goods, right? First glance, first thing I see is that they're making them with the same amount of resources because they don't mention it, so I'm assuming it's the same. I'm like, okay, well, I know that country A can make more than country B in either, so country A would have the absolute advantage in either of these goods. Problem is, none of these questions ask that, which is super annoying because you would always love there to be an absolute advantage question because it's the easy one. But absolute advantage is just who can make the most given the same resources, which is just, oh, I mean, A can make more, right? 60 and 40. Bigger than 40 or 20. So, ba-bang. A asks, what is the opportunity cost to produce a loom in terms of hammocks in country A? What they mean is, using like hammocks and looms, what is the opportunity cost of making a loom? Basically, for every loom they produce, how many hammocks do they give up in country A? So what I have set up here is my table, and I have written out in each box like 1 hammock equals, and 1 loom equals, 1 hammock equals, 1 loom equals, for the basic setup of doing the opportunity cost. So opportunity cost to produce a loom in terms of hammocks in country A. Well, I need to figure out, okay, so for every loom they make, how many hammocks do they give up? The basic idea for that is that you do something called OGO. Because this is an output problem, because the numbers that are given to me are the number of things being produced, the number of hammocks, the number of looms that are being made. So it's an output problem. I'm going to do other goes over. So to find the opportunity cost of 1 loom, I will take the other number, 60, and put it over the current number, 40. 60 over 40, which simplifies down to 6/4, which simplifies down again to 3.5 hammocks. So the opportunity cost of producing a loom in terms of hammock is 3/2 of a hammock. For every loom they make, they could have made 1.5 hammocks, right? Because if they could make 40 looms or 60 hammocks, that proportionally makes sense. Which country, if either, has the comparative advantage in producing looms? Now, comparative advantage, again, is who can produce it at a lower opportunity cost. I've just found the opportunity cost of looms for A, so I should find it for B. For B, it's 40 and 20. The opportunity cost of finding 1 loom is other goes over, so 40 over 20, which is just 2. So every time country B makes a loom, they could have made 2 hammocks. Every time country A makes a loom, they could have made 1.5 hammocks. So who has the comparative advantage is who gives up the least, who has the less costly production. And that would be country A. And your explanation here would just be simply because they have a lower opportunity cost. They only give up 3/2 of a hammock for every loom, whereas country B gives up 2 hammocks for every loom. Lower opportunity. It's lower, that's a L and an O, not a B. I know that sucks. Lower opportunity cost. Internationally, if 1 loom is being traded for 1.75 hammocks, who will benefit from that trading? Country A, country B, both, or neither? This is a terms of trade problem. Now, my lettering got worse. It's because I was doing those in lowercase, and also, shut up. Okay. Internationally, if 1 loom is being traded for 1.75 hammocks, who will benefit? So terms of trade is the question here. And for a terms of trade problem, you have to do a couple of things. One, you have to figure out who is making what. And that's based on specialization, and you specialize in what you have a comparative advantage in. We said A would specialize in looms, which means that B will specialize in hammocks. So this is 1 loom from A for 1.75 hammocks from B. So step 1, figure out who's making what. And again, that's based on comparative advantage. Countries specialize in what they have a comparative advantage in and then trade for the other thing. The second step is to build a range using your opportunity costs. And I've already found the opportunity costs for 1 loom, because it's asking for 1 loom. So my opportunity costs for 1 loom were, for country A, I already did this one. This was the 3/2. And then the 1 loom for country B is 2 hammocks. Random question, but is international trade still going on right now? Yes, it is. There is still international trade. It is slowed down considerably, though, Brutus. That's a good question. It is still existing. It is still happening. We do still have products being made in other countries. In fact, because China was the first to deal with it, China is also the first country that is really getting out of the COVID-19 crisis. Parts of China are opening up to moderate success. So they are beginning to ramp back up their production ability. South Korea is in a similar situation. So yeah, there is still international trade going on. It is significantly less than normal though. So that's a good thing to ask. So this is my first part of my setup, which is I need to set up my opportunity costs as a range, and then a mutually beneficial term of trade would be one that is in between my opportunity cost. So anything that's between 3/2 and 2, which again, this is just 1.5. It's easier if I write this in decimal form on this question. So anything between 1.5 and 2 will be mutually beneficial, which, hey, it's 1.75, so this is going to be good for both. Here's the cool thing. This one didn't ask you to explain it. Thank God. But if you had to, it's good to know how to. So they gave me 1.75. How in the hell is this good for both? Well, this up top was country A's opportunity cost, right? So that's A's opportunity cost. This bottom one was country B's opportunity cost. And I mentioned that country A is making the looms, right? So country A on its own is doing its whole thing. It's by itself. It's all alone, whatever. And they give up one loom because they want to start getting hammocks. They give up one loom and they get back 1.5 hammocks because that's their trade-off, right? Every time they produced one loom, they could have produced 1.5 hammocks. So when they give up the one, they get back 1.5. Yeah, the quick and dirty trick works. That's the other goes over thing, isn't it? If I remember correctly. But that's totally fine. There's like 3 things you can do that really trim time on a comparative advantage problem. That's in his videos too. I like you understanding it more, but you know the trick is good. So 1 for 1.5, there's your basic setup. That's theirs on their own. In this trade, they're giving one loom to country B, and country B is going to give them 1.75 hammocks. Well, that's a lot better, right? They're getting 0.25 more than before, right? Country A is going to get plus 0.25 hammocks. They're getting plus 0.25 more than before, right? I forgot everything I learned, that's why I'm back. Sydney, hey, I respect that. That is super normal. First semester kids are in a really rough spot. So, for 1 loom and 2 hammocks, what's the deal? How do we figure this part out? Isn't this worse for them? Wouldn't this be worse because they're getting less hammocks? No, because look, they were the ones giving up the hammocks, so we've got to read this the other way. In order to get 1 loom, they used to have to give up 2 hammocks, but now they're giving 1.75 hammocks for 1 loom. Used to give up 2 for 1, now they're giving up 1.75 for 1. That is also good. That is good for B. That's a horrible looking B. Because they get to keep 0.25 of a hammock. They get to save it. Okay, they're saving 0.25 hammocks. You used to give up 2 for 1, now they're giving up 1.75 for 1. How do I know who's giving up what? That was because of this. That's why I say the first thing you got to do is figure out who's making what, which again is based on comparative advantage, and luckily I'd already figured that out. Because A has a comparative advantage in one of these, B's got it in the other. So A has comparative advantage on looms, B's got it in hammocks. Done. Kenneth, good to see you. So that is a term of trade problem. And don't worry if you missed it, I have one more term of trade problem in this set of FRQ, so I'll do this one more time at least. But the basic idea is what you need to do with 2 steps. First step, specialization, who's making what. Second step is the big thing, which is set up a range using your opportunity costs. Again, these are my opportunity costs that I found earlier. 1.5 and 2, because other goes over. 6 over 4 is 1.5, and 4 over 2 is 2. So those are my 2 opportunity costs. Anything in between those 2 would be good for both. So 1.75, which is what they offered here, is good for both. Now let's say they didn't give you 1.75. Let's say they gave you a different number, because it's good to get the practice of like who's benefiting where in which situations. So what I'm about to do here is not on this question. This is a separate thing. This is just a thing I'm asking in case you don't get like the perfect right in between the 2 numbers. How do I figure out who is it good for? So let's say this didn't say 1.75. Let's say this said 3 hammocks. So 1 loom for 3 hammocks. Who is this trade good for, country A or country B? Well, again, go by the same logic as before. Country A is giving up the looms here. They used to give up 1 loom for 1.5. Now they're giving up 1 loom, getting back 3. That is freaking amazing for country A. A gets plus 1.5. They get a lot, right? Country B is giving up the hammocks, and now we're asking them to give up 3 as opposed to 2. And that's not a good deal. Country B would be losing. So only country A would benefit there. Only country A is doing better than before. And again, that's not a real question. That was just a question I threw at you in case they use numbers that aren't inside the range. If they do that, then go through the logic. It's why I write down the range. It's not required. It just helps me set up the logic of like, okay, country A gave up 1 for 1.5. Country B gave up 1 for 2, except country B is focused on giving up the 2 because they specialized in that, etc., etc., etc. Now, this last part, D. Assume there is international trade. Basically, assume that these two countries decide to trade. You got 2 questions here that are logical questions about the production possibilities curve, things that we don't always really talk about. First thing is, can a country produce beyond its production possibilities curve? The second thing is, can a country consume beyond its production possibilities curve? So we got 2 separate ideas. One is production, the other is consumption. Now, there's technically more than one answer to the first part, or more than one possible answer, depending on how you explain it. So I'm going to give myself some space here to work with. Oh, if I just hold it down, it does the same thing. Sick. Okay. So, can a country produce beyond its production possibilities curve? Short answer, no. And I say that because on our production possibilities curve, when we were first learning it, what did a point like that represent? It represented unattainable given current resources. So you could say, no, given their current resources, they cannot really produce beyond that amount. Now, you could argue, hey, Mr. McRitchie, wouldn't this also represent like an inflationary gap? Couldn't they possibly produce that if they like overused their resources or if they went beyond full employment? The answer to that is yes. So, yes, if they go above full employment. So really there's 2 answers. The easiest answer is just to put no, because like not really. Oh my god. Hey, Ethan. No. Remove. Ethan, this is still a school live stream. I needed to keep it appropriate for me, okay? And don't at anybody either. Okay, now can a country consume beyond its production possibilities curve? Yes. Yes, it can. You can consume beyond it. That's the whole point of doing this kind of trade, right? Because this represents your ability to produce. It doesn't represent your ability to like share with other countries. So yes, you can consume beyond your production possibilities curve because you can get more from other countries that allows you to continue to consume past your normal limits. Think of America in general as like a, can we consume beyond our production? Yeah, definitely. Yes, with international trade. Yes, if you use international trade, then you can absolutely consume beyond your production possibilities curve. You didn't produce more than you could. It's just because of a deal you got, there is now like an extension in terms of the amount of the good that you have. So yes, you can consume beyond it because of international trade can sort of hit you past your normal production capabilities. It's the whole point of trading, right? The reason why you might trade is because then you might be able to get more of a good than you'd be able to produce on your own. Cool. You're getting more of the good, meaning you're consuming more of that good than you'd be able to do on your own. You're still producing a certain number, but you can consume a higher number than normal. That is kind of tricky. So if you want the answers written in a form that you can actually read, because good God, where's my key on this? Oh, wait. It's weird. I can't see the key on scoring guide. There it is. Might take up to 30 seconds. Why? Whatever. Oh, I'm not going to open a PDF for that. Whatever. You have my answers on the board. Second one, this one is all production possibilities curve. So this is tied to the most recent stuff we did. This is a sort of like double whammy of things we've done before plus things we are doing now. So assume that an economy is at full employment. Explain how an increase in net investment will affect each of the following. So there's an increase in investment spending in our economy. How will that affect aggregate demand? Well, investment spending goes up. There's more spending in our economy, so AD goes up. Right? If you got more spending, you got more aggregate demand because people are buying more stuff. In this case, it's businesses buying capital, but hey, that still counts. So aggregate demand will go up because businesses are spending more on capital goods. Those things that typically do count towards GDP. Capital stock would also go up because if they're buying capital, then there's more capital stock. You have a larger amount of overall capital in your economy. So that's the first two parts taken care of. This is a fairly easy FRQ, I think. This is an awesome one. I would love to have this one. This feels too short of an FRQ for you guys to have this year. What happens to your long-run aggregate supply curve? That would go up as well. And that's because of this. Remember that one of the things that does change the long aggregate supply is a change in capital stock. Because if you have more technology, tools, machinery, and stuff like that, then you could produce more under ideal circumstances. And that's what your LRAS represents, is your ideal or sustainable production. Well, cool, if you have more capital, then yeah, you'd be able to produce more in that situation. So yeah, this would also go up. Now for each of these, you'd have to explain it. So all the stuff that I'm saying way too fast for you to write down are what you would be putting as the answer. So long aggregate supply will go up because of an increase in capital stock. The ideal amount of production, aka the natural rate of output or full employment output, will improve under those circumstances. And then output, yeah, that would also go up. So you might hate this question because the answer to all four of these was an increase. That might bug the hell out of you. But that would be a relatively good way to explain it. Output goes up because there's an overall increase in production. As AD goes up, they're buying more capital as businesses produce more, so output goes up as the amount of production. And explain how the increase in investment will affect the production possibilities curve shown below. Two things will happen. Oh, actually, there's just good X and good Y. What will happen on this? Oh my God, why did it get so much thicker? That's what should happen. The production possibilities curve should shift outward as full employment output has now been increased. Full employment is now larger because due to the increase in capital, this country could produce more of good Y and of good X. So that's a fairly simple FRQ that touches on some stuff from this past week as well as production possibilities curve. We hit on that in one of the videos last week. I just want to make sure that I have it somewhere. So pause. These are the answers. The verbal explanation you do need. Now here's a different production possibilities curve question, one that actually has a lot going on in it. So I'm going to move my picture up here to the top. So we've got Fisherland, and they produce only consumer and capital goods. Capital goods on the X, consumer goods on the Y. Again, quick refresher, consumer goods are goods that are immediately used up. Think most food applies as a consumer good. Capital goods are technology, tools, machinery. Capital, stock, capital goods, capital, whatever. It's all the same thing. It's things we use to make stuff. Not natural resources, man-made stuff. So like tools, technology, machinery. So the graph above shows the production possibilities curve for Fisherland, the production of which the following exhibits increasing opportunity cost. Consumer goods, capital goods, both or neither. Lindsay, good to see you. Yeah, I assumed you would have needed to take a mental break. Again, that lit exam, AP exam days, don't worry. There's no stress on any of you guys who have to come in late. That is totally understandable. So what does increasing opportunity cost mean? It means that as you produce one of these goods, you're giving up a steadier and steadier, larger amount of the other goods. So if you were to imagine it with numbers, so from here to here, we're giving up very few consumer goods, right? Maybe one consumer good for whatever this amount of capital goods is. As I go further to the right, I'm giving up a larger and larger and larger and larger and larger amount of the y-axis, right? That opportunity cost is increasing. I'm giving up a larger and larger amount. So it's increasing opportunity cost on a bowed out curve. A production possibilities curve shaped like this has increasing opportunity cost. The thing that we don't always clarify is for which good, and the answer is for both. Yeah, that's what a circle is. Just clear that. Wait, that's better. For both goods is the answer. Because if you look at it left to right or right to left, either way you get the same idea, which is to say, okay, from here to here I give up a very little amount of these. Well, from here to here, I give up a very little amount of the capital goods, right? Like this value, this drop is very small. So if I go the other way, if I basically like, how do I phrase this properly? If my graph is normally shaped like with this, then I'm just reading it like this. I'm just literally flipping it. In which case the shape is still the same, and both would have an increasing opportunity cost. The only other way you can see this graph drawn is with what's called constant opportunity cost, which is like, oh god, that. If it's a straight line, or a straight line minus this weird bump I have here. If you've got a straight line for your approach possibility curve, you have constant opportunity cost. That'll really only happen if the two goods given are made from the same stuff. It's the pizza calzones example from class. Okay, redraw off the graph given above, show a point that represents full employment and efficiently used resources and label it A. I'm just going to use the graph that I already have here because I already have it. Yeah, point is A. Yay. Assume that there is a recession in Fisherland. On your graph in part B, label as C a point representing the recession. Okay. A point inside the curve would be a recession because recessions are periods of time with high unemployment, and unemployment is inside this curve. You do not shrink the curve, because if you were to shrink the curve, that would mean that your maximum production is less, which is not true in a recession. In a recession, I still have this maximum. I'm just producing under my maximum. Okay, D, identify a fiscal policy action that Fisherland government can take to address the recession. Okay, well, we're in a recessionary gap. What fiscal policies should be appropriate? We know it needs to be an expansionary. That's not the answer, that's the type. We need the economy to expand. So what are my expansionary fiscal policies? Well, fiscal policies were the simple ones. That was when the government changes things like spending and taxes. So what changes to spending and taxes expand the economy? Well, an increase in G or a decrease in taxes. So higher government spending or lower taxes, either one would get spending to go up in your economy, which would get you, ideally, out of the recession. Assume instead that no discretionary policy actions are taking place. Will SRAS increase, decrease, or remain the same in the long run? And explain it. Well, looky here. Look how they snuck this freaking question in there. So what they're asking about is the long run self-adjustment. If we're keeping the score at home, this is probably like the 25th FRQ I've done where they just randomly ask about this, which means it's a thing you need to be able to answer. So what's happened in this economy is this has happened. Prior to part E, ignoring part D, because it says assume that no policy actions take place, this is what's happened. We had an economy at full employment, that's the purple, and then there was something that caused a recession, that's the green. So we are in a recession right now of some kind. What happens in the long run on this graph if the government doesn't do anything? Remember, if the government doesn't do anything, what line moves where? SRAS moves to get us back to long run equilibrium. Oh my god. Where does SRAS got to go? It's got to go to the right. Oh god. So the end point, the end graph should look like this. There's no question asking me to graph any of it, but this is just the visual. What did SRAS do? It increased. Why/how? Okay. Looking at the graph with the purple and green, what's happened? What could cause the supply to go up? Well, we had aggregate demand go down. That's not good. That means there's lower GDP and higher unemployment. That's still not good for productivity. It means the price level's going down. Okay, that could be good for productivity-wise, because price level goes down means things are cheaper. If I'm a business owner and things are cheaper, there's really two things that could be going my way that might allow me to produce more. One is resources are now going to get cheaper, right? If everything's cheaper, that includes things I use to produce stuff. So price level going down could drive the price of my resources down, which would allow me to buy more of those resources and ramp up production, increasing SRAS. That is one possible explanation. The other explanation possibility, which is everything is cheaper. I'm a business owner. What could I do? I could pay my workers less, because if everything is cheaper, then they can't really complain if I pay them less, because they're still the same as wealthy as before. So if I cut wages and then use that money to then hire more workers, that would also ramp up my ability to produce and increase SRAS. So when they have a question like this, and they ask you to explain it, what you have to give them as your answer is something that would actually have SRAS increase. A scenario, a situation, something that businesses are controlling that allows them to ramp up their production. The easiest one is the wages change, because businesses can always do that. Because that's regardless of price level, doing anything, the businesses can always be like, well, they pay their workers less and hire more workers, boom, fixes it. They can kind of always do something like that. They have that ability unilaterally. So feel free to use that one every time. If something like what we just had happens, then yeah, you can use the resources thing, because you know price level went down, so you know that resources are getting cheaper, so then businesses could produce more. If you don't know if price level went down or not, then you can't guarantee that that the resources got cheaper. So you can't necessarily use that answer every time. But in this case, you could. Okay. This is an FRQ we actually we've had in class before. We've actually done this FRQ in class before. It's just a really good FRQ for hitting on a lot of stuff when it comes to monetary policy. Okay, last one. And this is another absolute comparative advantage specialization in trade. So this is a tiny table, but I'm going to recopy it into my thing because I don't want to mess with that freaking baby table. So I've got John and I've got Erica, and they make donuts and they make cupcakes. Okay, we got donuts, I got cupcakes, I got John, I got Erica. John can make 200 donuts or 100 cupcakes. Erica can make 150 donuts or 50 cupcakes. Now, one thing I do want to mention, I couldn't find an FRQ that had an input problem. That's mostly because terms of trade isn't something you can really do with an input problem, but let's make sure in case it happens to you. An input problem is an absolute advantage, comparative advantage problem, where the numbers in the table represent things that are being used to make something. So if this said number of seconds to make a donut and to make a cupcake, it would be an input problem. And how do you know it's an input problem? Well, if you read the table, if you read the prompt above the table, whoever has the lower number should be better if it's an input problem. If this said number of seconds to make donuts and cupcakes, then Erica would be better than John, because Erica takes less time, right? So if the smaller number is a good thing, it's an input problem. If the smaller number is a bad thing, aka if the bigger number is a good thing, then it's an output problem, which is what this says. This says the amount of donuts and cupcakes they can make in a day. Well, John can make more donuts and more cupcakes, so output, because the big number is the good thing here. And what I just described was absolute advantage. Absolute advantage is who can make the most given the same resources. If I give both of them a day, who can make the most donuts? John. And your explanation would be, because if I gave them both the same amount of time and resources, John would be able to produce more. That's the explanation. For an explanation on a problem like this, you are really just rephrasing or applying the definition to the situation, which in this case, absolute advantage definition is who can produce the most given the same amount of resources. So I would just say, John, because he can produce the most donuts given the same amount of resources. He can produce 200 donuts given a day, where Erica can only produce 150. If they asked for cupcakes, it would be the same thing, because John can also make more cupcakes. Who has the comparative advantage in donuts? Again, what I have to do, if it's an output problem, I do O, G, O. Take the other number and I put it over the current one. So I'm just going to find all the opportunity costs, because it's probably a good idea to do that, and it doesn't take very long to do that. The opportunity cost of one donut for John is other goes over, so 100 over 200, which is just 1/2. And the opportunity cost of one cupcake for John is 200 over 100, or 2. Remember that they are reciprocals. Opportunity cost of Erica making one donut is other goes over 50 over 150, which is 1/3. And then you do 150 over 50, which is 3. And again, reciprocals. So here, if you want to pause the video on this part, let me make sure that this is all visible. Here's my table. What's in red are the opportunity costs. So for John, the opportunity cost of one donut is 1/2 of a cupcake. For Erica, the opportunity cost of one donut is 1/3 of a cupcake. So who has the comparative advantage in donuts? That would be who has the lower opportunity cost, because you'd want the person who gives up less cupcakes to make a donut. And that'd be Erica, because 1/3 is less than 1/2. Pausing there, because Runas specifically wanted to make sure you knew how to do that. Runas, did that make sense to you? Again, I'm going to pull this up on the board. Did that track? Did that make sense? Did the opportunity cost and how I found them make sense to you? Again, to find the opportunity cost of one donut for John, I did other goes over. So I did the other, which was the 100, over the 200. So I took the number from the other column and put it over the current one. Sorry. Trying to like maximize both being able to see, hey, can you see this? And can I see it? And can I see the webcam? Because I can't see the front board when I hold it up in front of my face. Cool. So Erica's got the comparative advantage. And again, the answer that you would say for the explanation would be because she produces at a lower opportunity cost, the opportunity cost of one donut for Erica is simply 1/3 of a cupcake, where the opportunity cost for John is 1/2 of a cupcake. If you put a table in, or if you do this, you can reference it, but you still would need to explain because she has a lower opportunity cost as seen in the table. That'd be fine. That's an easy way to take care of that. Okay. Assume that John and Erica decide to specialize according to their comparative advantage. Cool. And that one cupcake is exchanged for 4 donuts. Is this good for John? Is this good for Erica? That's the question. Okay, it's a term of trade problem again. First step, who's making what? Term of trade problem, first step I gotta figure out is who's making what. Erica is making the donuts because she has a comparative advantage. So Erica's making a donut, or making the donuts. This is 4 donuts from Erica for 1 cupcake from John. And again, John had the comparative advantage of cupcake because he only gave up 2 donuts for every cupcake, whereas Erica gave up 3. So I know that part. That part we're good. So I know it's 1 cupcake from John for 4 donuts from Erica. You need to know that. Second thing, I use my opportunity costs as a range. My opportunity costs were, for John, the opportunity cost of 1 cupcake is, other goes over 200 over 100, so 2. For Erica, the opportunity cost of 1 cupcake was, other goes over 3 donuts. I'm going to do this in blue. And again, the trade that they gave us was 1 cupcake for 4 donuts. So first things first. Oh, I'll move my head out of the way. There we go. First things first, we have a problem. Because any mutually beneficial term of trade would have fallen in between these 2 numbers. If it was between 2 and 3, it would have been good for both, no problems. It's not good for both. It's good for one and not the other. So we got 4, 2, and 3. So let's make sure we figure out some stuff. First things first. This top one was John's. This bottom one was Erica's. Need to keep track of that. Second thing. It's 1 cupcake from John for 4 donuts from Erica. That is also important for me to keep in mind, frame of reference. So let's start at the top. John used to give up 1 cupcake for 2 donuts. John is now giving up 1 cupcake for 4 donuts. That sounds awesome for John. John is getting +2 donuts. Beneficial for John? You bet. It is absolutely beneficial for John. This is a sick deal for John. Which means this is bad for Erica if it doesn't fall in the range, but let's just explain it. Erica, again, she's not giving up cupcakes here. She is specializing in donuts. She is the person giving the 4 donuts in this trade. So before, what I have to focus on is the 3. She used to give up 3 donuts for 1 cupcake. Now she's being asked to give up 4 donuts for 1 cupcake, and that is not good. Because she's being asked to give up 1 more donut than before. She's losing a donut in this deal, compared to just doing it on her own. On her own, if she wanted a cupcake, she had to give up 3 donuts. With this trade, for 1 cupcake, she has to give up 4 donuts. That's a bad deal for Erica. So good for John, bad for Erica. That is a term of trade problem, and that is a term of trade problem where it doesn't happen to fall in between the range. Again, if this question were to ask as part C, triple I, what would be a possible trade that is mutually beneficial? It would have to be a number in between 2 and 3. So if it was like 2.5, which is the obvious one, that's the one that's right between the two. If it's 2.5 donuts, then John is still getting more than before. John is getting 0.5 more than before, so he gets an additional 0.5 donut. And Erica's being asked to give up 0.5 less than before, so she's actually saving half a donut. So good for Erica, good for John if it falls halfway between. So remember, you want to set up the range. That's how you do terms of trade, is you need to do a range. Terms of trade needs a range. Sort of rhymes. And then D says, assume that Erica discovers a new cupcake production technique that will increase her daily production of cupcakes only. Using donuts on the horizontal axis, draw a correctly labeled production possibilities curve for Erica for both before and after the technological change. Okay, this is a production possibilities curve problem. Actually, I can just do it on this board. I don't need to do it on here, I don't think. Now for this one, bowed out versus straight line, cupcakes and donuts are pretty similar. They would use mostly the same resources, I think. So I would probably draw this one with a straight line. It doesn't really matter. They wouldn't have really cared here. Donuts are my horizontal axis. Cupcakes are my vertical axis. This is my original line. Then it asks me to draw a before and after. This is the before line. And then after the technological change, well, it increases cupcakes only, which means I should be able to make more cupcakes, but I should be able to make only the same amount of donuts. Now, ideally, this would have been like more of a like perfect shift for me, but I'm also doing this with the finger pen thing. That's it. Oh God, this is an arrow. That is my shift. If I'm drawing it on my whiteboard, to be a little more like clean and concise about it. It would look kind of like that, where there's like a clear only increase in the y value. Your max x value should be the same because this change only affected cupcake production, not donuts. It specified cupcakes only. So remember, when you change your production possibilities curve, you don't have to move the whole line out. If that country or that place only gets better at making one of those two goods, then it's just that one good that is affected. And if you're wondering what kind of things affect my production possibilities curve, it was any change that affects your ability to produce these two goods. The acronym I had for that was QQTT, which was quantity and quality of your resources, technology and trade. New production technique, that's a resource. That'd be like capital. Human capital would be like your skills. So this would be like a human capital increase. Okay, that increases it. If you had like less factories, less land for factories, something like that, that would decrease it, stuff like that. Technology, better technology make more stuff, worse technology make less stuff. Trade, that's the thing where terms of trade can let you produce, or not produce, consume outside your production possibilities curve. Okay, that is it. Those are the 4 FRQs that I chose because they cover kind of a bit of everything. But again, I didn't see any FRQs that hit on input problems. And that's mostly because input problems are kind of not a thing you can do when it comes to terms of trade. Doesn't really work out when you do those. So chances are you won't see an input problem. If you did, the only thing that really changes is OGO is how you find your opportunity cost. I'm going to solve A and B as if this was an input problem. So let's say that this says the number of seconds that John and Erica use to make donuts and cupcakes. If that was the case, then I would say that Erica has the absolute advantage in donuts, because if I gave them the same amount of time, and it takes Erica 150 seconds to make a donut, it takes John 200 seconds to make a donut, well, Erica's better at it then, because it takes her less time. That's better. Again, the absolute advantage is look at the table, who's better, based on the information you have. And in this case, the information is seconds that they use to make one. All right, well, in that case, Erica's better. For comparative advantage, its other goes under. The difference being the opportunity cost of one donut for John would be 2 cupcakes. And this would be 1/2. This one would be 3. And this one would be 1/3. Because the idea, if I gave John the amount of time to make one donut, he could have made 2 cupcakes in that amount of time, right? Because if I gave him 200 seconds, he can make 1 donut, or he could have made 2 cupcakes. So every time he makes 1 donut, he gave up 2 cupcakes. For Erica, same idea. If I gave her 150 seconds, she could have made 1 donut or 3 cupcakes based on this table over there. Comparative advantage in donuts, in this case, would be John, because he gives up less cupcakes per donut. So if they made it an input problem, it does completely change your answer. So just read it carefully. If the numbers in the table being high is good, then it's output. If the numbers in the table being low is good, then it's an input problem. That's your sort of like simple way of figuring it out. But, and Sydney mentioned this, feel free to watch the AC/DC videos over it. He shows a couple of extra tricks you can do that can cut through some of the time you might need to spend on an absolute comparative advantage problem. So those are good videos to watch, like AP exam day of like, oh, right, that works as well. Okay. Any questions, comments, or concerns over those 2 topics, production possibilities curves and absolute comparative advantage terms of trade? Again, your terms of trade steps were identify who specializes in what, which is based on comparative advantage, and then use your opportunity costs as a range. Any number in between that range will work as a mutually beneficial trade. Any number outside that range will be beneficial for one and not the other. Trying to see if there's any questions. Again, tomorrow I'll be going over what is considered by the AP to be Unit 2. For us, it was mostly Unit 3, which is GDP, CPI, inflation, unemployment rate. So a lot of your math stuff, a lot of stuff that required formulas, some stuff to show up on Tuesday's FRQ demonstration. Can I explain PPC again? Yeah, sure. Let me use the with everything. Let me get a mostly blank one. This will work. So we've got this production possibilities curve right here, right, Ernest? Now, production possibilities curve just shows us a country's ability to produce combinations of 2 goods. So in this case, it's good X and good Y, and this country can make any combination that would be on that line, right? On the line is if that country is crushing it. If they're on the line, that they are maximizing their production. So that line represents full employment, right? If you're crushing it, your economy is at full employment, right? If we said that your economy is doing great, means you're at full employment, you're kind of doing everything perfectly. Cool. So this line represents full employment. You could also think of this line, Ernest, as like the LRAS, right? Because that LRAS was our ideal amount of production. That's what this is. It's an ideal amount of production. Anything below the line, like if there is a point right here, is producing less than your maximum, right? You're underproducing. You're producing less than you should based on what you've got. This would be either there is some unemployment going on, and that could be unemployment of people, but it could also be unemployment of resources. Maybe you've got factories that have closed down temporarily, right? Like right now, a lot of the unemployment is not just people, it's also of resources. Okay, a lot of our machines and computers and stuff and factories are not able to be used because of the shutdown, because of the quarantine. So we are hunkered down right here. If you had a point outside the curve, that is typically listed as being impossible or unattainable given your current resources. Given everything you currently have, you really can't produce this point. Now, technically speaking, you can if you like overuse your resources, if you go to like a non-sustainable level of use. So like, I know we need that land to like not die, but like let's just friggin' use it anyway, because like, lol, who cares? So like that is possible, but generally speaking, impossible, unattainable, unemployment, recession. Now with this graph, some things that will move you outward are increases in your overall ability to produce these 2 goods. Now that could be overall ability to produce everything, which if there's like an increase in investment spending, which again is spending by businesses on capital, well, I mean, yeah, if there's more capital, if you've got more technology, machinery, and tools, you should be able to produce more of whatever the hell good X and good Y are. So like this is what would happen in this problem, because the increase in investment spending should lead to an overall increase in our ability to produce. So the production possibilities curve should shift outward. If you had a decrease in capital or a decrease in labor or a decrease in technology somehow, then you would see the curve shift inward. And if you had things that were specific to each good, say that this country specifically gets better at producing country X, but there's no change to country Y, or good Y, sorry. This country gets better at producing good X, but the same at good Y. Your graph would look something like this. Imagine that line, that pink was like on that black, like there wasn't a drop there. Okay, it'd be like that, where their maximum of X is higher, but their maximum of Y is the same, because they got better at making X, but not any better at making Y. So again, if there's like a technological improvement that was just for X, then that would happen. And then the shape of the curve thing which came up was this shape, a bowed out curve, represents increasing opportunity cost, which happens if these two goods are different. Like if you got two goods that are really different, then switching from making one to the other won't be like a 1 for 2 every time situation. There'll be some inefficiency in that, because you're like, I'm going from making cupcakes to robots. It's like, okay, those use completely different resources. That's not going to be like a smooth transition. This curve shows that it's not smooth. But there is, like, at some point, it starts out being okay, but as you do more and more of it, it starts to become like more costly. So the bowed out curve represents increasing opportunity cost, which again happens if your two goods are different. If your two goods are the same, you should have a PPC that looks like this, where it's a straight line, where it's linear, which again means that you have constant opportunity cost, and that's because the two goods here are almost identical, or at least ingredients slash resources slash people used to make it identical. And the example we always used in class for this was pizza and calzones, or like tacos and burritos. Those are, from like a component standpoint, from like a what you need to make them standpoint, pretty much identical things. You don't really need that much different. Maybe size of tortilla for the taco and burrito, maybe size or amount of pizza dough for the calzone versus pizza, but that's marginal. That's very small compared to like robots and cupcakes. Like those are friggin' stratospheres apart. This is not that far apart. So if you got two goods that have pretty similar resources, or basically similar resources, you should have a fairly linear production possibilities curve. Now, they can't make you graph stuff. They could theoretically ask, would a production possibilities graph of pizza and calzones, a calzone being a folded up pizza into burrito form, have a linear or a concave slash bowed out production possibilities curve? You would say linear. I don't know if they'll ask that question. That seems kind of weird, because frankly this is like too easy of a graph to mess with, but they could, theoretically. That should help, I think, Runas. That's like my full PPC breakdown. And again, I have videos over, I have a Unit 1 review video where I like re-teach that content. It's one of the first videos I did for this channel. So if you need like the reteaching of the content, that video will work. This is just me strictly working through practice problems. This is me just going like, okay, I'll touch on what these things are by solving problems about them, because this is the kind of thing that your AP exam is going to look like, is 2 FRQ problems. So pulled up 4. That second one's really short, so I don't think that would really work for this year's AP exam. It might be like part of your AP exam this year. Like 2/3 of your AP exam question this year could be that second one. It seems just too short to be what it's going to look like this year. And again, tomorrow I'm going to be doing GDP, unemployment, CPI, inflation, a lot of that. So it's going to be like probably another like 4, maybe 5 FRQs for tomorrow. So the video will probably take about an hour, like this one did. I hope you guys had a decent time during that lit exam. How many of you guys are you guys done with exams for this week? How many of you guys are in physics 1? Let me see the thing. So again, you shouldn't have any on Friday, because none of you guys are taking A push, art history, comp sci A. I don't think that's a lot of you. Physics 1, chem shouldn't be really any of you. Spanish lit, aren't you guys Spanish lang? Isn't that the one you guys are doing? Haha, now I can tell all you future students look at my videos. Yes, I can. Yeah, that's the nice thing, is that I have all these saved up. So like if I have a kid who's like, hey, I don't know how to do this, it's like, cool, watch this video. It'll also be helpful next year. Although frankly, if next year is remote at the start, I'll probably still do live streams, even though I already have a video where I explain the whole thing backlogged. I'll probably do like live streams. You have 3 exams next week. Yeah, I was about to say, I think you guys are almost done with this week. Next week you guys have mine, I know stats on Friday, Spanish, apes is next week, bio, psych, German, question mark? I think you guys are in German. Yeah, so like it's stat, Spanish, macro, psych, bio, apes are the big ones for us next week. Right? AP Chem never again? Yeah, AP Chem's freaking rough. I didn't do AP Chem. Because we didn't have like physics 1, physics 2. We just had like pre-AP physics, and then the AP physics were like was like a 2 years track when I was here. So it was junior year pre-AP physics and then senior year AP physics, which was tough. Psych's easy. Psych should be an easy exam, especially since it's all like vocab based and you have a computer. Can't imagine the psych exam will be very difficult for you guys. And I think you guys got cut off like literally perfectly, where you had covered everything for the AP exam right before you guys left. Isn't the shirt this year? Okay, for those of you that are just hanging on, if there's no more questions about the content, then that will be it for today's video. Thank you guys for tuning in. I know a lot of you guys were just like brain freaking dead from doing essays for English. I know. Thank you for showing up anyway and just powering through regardless of that. That's still really good. Remind your friends that, because I'm sending the emails out, but you know some people just don't want to check their emails, for the AP Super Saturday this Saturday. So for the Super Saturday this Saturday, it's from 10 a.m. till 2 p.m. And again, it's going to be on the YouTube channel, so you'll be able to see it again later. It's just if you want like the live sort of collaborative bit of, Mr. McRitchie, could you explain this? Like what Brunus was doing, which is perfect. Exactly the right thing to do, Brunus, is just to ask, hey, could you explain that one more time? Exactly fine. Perfectly right. That'll be from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. on Saturday. And then I'll be doing something similar on the day of the AP exam from like probably 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. where I'm just sort of going through kind of everything, working through as many FRQs as I can to try and cover every nook and cranny of the course that they could kind of hit on in a problem. So that'll be sort of the game plan for the next week and a half. Again, there are those 86 multiple choice questions on AP Classroom. They're all multiple choice, so take them at your own like sort of leisure here. But if you have a few days, if you've got a few days that you sort of want to like knock out some stuff, that would be a good thing to knock out in the next couple of days on your own free time. Of like, let me just knock out those 86 questions McRitchie has, and then submit it, and then I can see the answers. If you don't know how to do a question, just put an answer down for it, and then move on to it and see what the answer is when you submit it. See if that makes sense, and if not, ask me about it next week and sometime. I'll have like a live stream where I go through or answer questions over the 86 questions that are on AP Classroom. Parker, yeah, I was going to make sure. I'll probably send another email out tomorrow with a reminder about the Super Saturday. I'll send it out to your parents too, that way in case some of your friends don't want to tell their parents that, or they want to say, you know, we're really not getting any help in economics. And then it's just like, look at my YouTube channel. Yeah, I'm doing it. I'm trying. I at least know how my computer stuff works. We figured that out like the second or first day because Zai was helping troubleshoot with the mic. Okay, but thanks everybody for tuning in as always. Let's get Archer in here for the last little bit of it. Arch! Yoda, you don't have to come. Archer! Good boy. Baba. Oh my god. They're so hairy. So the good news for you guys is that you can't smell his breath. Got friggin' dog breath. Arch, look at the camera. Over here. Don't lick my legs. Why do you always do that? Big stretch. Oh, you can see his butthole. That's great. That's some fucking cat shit, right? Oh, I just swore. Oh, God.